Success stories often look simple from a distance. A big name, a big brand, and a headline that makes it seem inevitable. But the real story is rarely clean or comfortable. Behind every visible win sits a long stretch of uncertainty, pressure, and choices that could have gone either way. This story is not about luck or overnight success. It is about how focus, strategy, and persistence shape outcomes over time. It is about decisions made when confidence was tested and momentum was not guaranteed. What happens when belief has to carry someone through risk instead of applause? Donald Trump grew up surrounded by business conversations, negotiations, and expectations. From an early age, he was exposed to the mechanics of real estate, learning how deals were structured and how reputation could influence opportunity. The environment was competitive and demanding, which shaped a mindset that valued control, confidence, and visibility. He learned early that business was not just about numbers, but about perception, timing, and leverage. As a young man stepping into the professional world, Trump faced a familiar challenge. He had access to opportunity, but access alone did not guarantee credibility. People watched closely to see whether he could operate independently or whether his progress would always be tied to family influence. That pressure created a strong internal drive to prove capability through results, rather than explanations. The business landscape he entered was unforgiving. Real estate required long-term thinking, patience, and a tolerance for public risk. Decisions were often irreversible, and mistakes could be expensive both financially and reputationally. Trump developed a preference for bold moves, but those moves were anchored in calculated positioning. Location, branding, and scale became central to how he approached growth. His mindset during this period was shaped by competition rather than comfort. He focused on visibility, negotiation strength, and control of outcomes. Each deal represented more than profit. It was a statement about confidence and direction. The foundation of his approach rested on one belief. If persistence met strategy, setbacks could be absorbed without losing momentum. As Trump expanded his business efforts, progress did not follow a straight line. Some ventures gained attention quickly while others faced resistance, delays, and financial strain. Markets shifted, partnerships dissolved, and public opinion fluctuated. Each challenge forced him to reassess tactics rather than abandon direction. Instead of retreating when outcomes fell short, he adjusted scale, renegotiated terms, or restructured timelines. One of the defining patterns during this period was his emphasis on branding. Trump understood that in competitive industries, perception could influence access to capital, partners, and media attention. He treated branding as a strategic asset rather than decoration. Buildings, projects, and deals were positioned to signal confidence and ambition, even when behind the scenes pressure was high. There were moments when critics questioned decisions and outcomes. Financial stress tested both resilience and reputation. These moments required a balance between public confidence and private recalibration. Trump leaned heavily into persistence, maintaining forward motion while refining strategy. He remained visible, vocal, and engaged, reinforcing an image of control even during uncertain periods. Negotiation became a central tool. Rather than accepting unfavorable outcomes as final, he treated most obstacles as temporary positions. This approach demanded patience and emotional discipline. Walking away too early could end opportunity, while holding on too long could deepen losses. Learning where to draw that line became part of his evolving strategy. Through these experiences, a consistent pattern emerged. Progress depended less on avoiding difficulty and more on staying active within it. Persistence was not passive endurance. It was deliberate engagement, repeated effort, and strategic recalculation. Over time, this approach allowed momentum to rebuild even after visible setbacks. The turning points in Trump's business journey were rarely dramatic moments of sudden change. They were gradual shifts in approach driven by reflection and pressure. Each setback forced a question: what could be controlled and what needed to be reframed? This process strengthened strategic thinking and reduced emotional reactivity over time. One key element was his willingness to absorb criticism without allowing it to dictate direction. Public opinion fluctuated, but long-term goals remained stable. This required a strong internal reference point. Instead of seeking constant validation, Trump focused on outcome alignment. If a decision supported long-term positioning, short-term discomfort became acceptable. Another important factor was adaptability. Persistence alone is not enough if effort is misdirected. Trump adjusted strategies when conditions changed, whether through refinancing, restructuring, or repositioning assets. These adjustments were not admissions of failure. They were acknowledgments of reality. Flexibility allowed persistence to remain productive rather than stubborn. Confidence played a complex role, fueled momentum, but also required discipline to prevent overextension. Learning when to push forward and when to pause became a skill developed through experience rather than theory. Each decision added data, refining judgment for future moves. The deeper motivation behind these choices centered on identity and control. Business success became a way to reinforce personal belief in capability and leadership. This internal drive sustained effort during periods when external support was limited. Instead of relying on favorable conditions, Trump relied on sustained engagement. The turning point was not a single victory. It was the realization that persistence paired with strategy could stabilize outcomes over time. This understanding shifted focus from immediate wins to long-term positioning, allowing setbacks to become part of the process rather than endpoints. Over time, the accumulation of strategic decisions and persistent effort produced visible results. Success did not erase earlier challenges, but it reframed them as necessary steps rather than permanent barriers. Each experience added perspective, shaping a business approach rooted in resilience and calculated action. Trump's story highlights a practical truth. Confidence alone does not build success, and persistence without strategy can exhaust momentum. The balance between the two creates durability. By staying engaged through uncertainty and adjusting tactics without abandoning direction, progress became sustainable. The lesson is not about imitation of specific choices. It is about mindset. Success often requires staying present during uncomfortable phases and resisting the urge to withdraw when outcomes are unclear. Strategy provides direction, and persistence provides continuity. Together, they create movement even when conditions are unstable. This journey reflects a broader reality faced by many ambitious individuals. Growth rarely arrives fully formed. It develops through repeated decisions, honest reassessment, and a willingness to remain active under pressure. Setbacks do not define capacity. Response does. In the end, the story is less about buildings or deals and more about approach. Strategy shapes possibility. Persistence keeps it alive. When those two elements work together, progress becomes less dependent on circumstance and more dependent on commitment. That combination remains one of the most reliable foundations for long-term success.